Of course, yes.
Transparency. Transparency is the concept that is used in science, engineering, business, and humanities, and other social contexts. It implies openness, communication, and most important of all, accountability. So what I'm gonna concentrate more on is business transparency. So the effects of how business transparency is very vital to the success of a business, and in addition, how the whole open concept mind of the open book concept of management was introduced into business in general. So all of you have been affected by this and will be affected by this and should definitely pay attention to this because we're in the fifth largest growing economy in the world. So as such, we are consumers to this huge economy, and we are, in a sense, responsible to know who we're buying products from and why, and what is their ultimate goal behind that entity, that respectable business. As a former member of a professionally organized structure for over 12 years, I have personally at hand seen the negative and the positive impacts that an organization can have and can influence on a vast amount of people. So moving forward, the purpose behind my speech is to inform all of you on the importance of business transparency. Moving on to my second point is going to be the measuring types of ways that you can have on a business, and the positive effects that ultimately lead to for you having a positive business transparency with your consumer, and better yet, with your community as a whole. So moving on to my first point. Excuse me, there it is right there. So moving on to my first main point, what is business transparency? Responsibility to the public. So the responsibility to the public that it has is, so for example, let's use somebody in the sense of very public figure known as Mr. Weinstein, who unfortunately his business has gone down the gutter for who he is. He was obviously not transparent as who he was, how he presented himself, but yet people still wanted to be involved in his business. People still wanted to see what he was about. And unfortunately, once all those powerful women came forward and decided to go ahead and put him in the hot seat, I would like to say it, we found out that his business transparency was not good at all. So we went ahead and, in a sense, fired him. So moving on, I just briefly discussed about some of the responsibilities that business transparency has in the effects. Moving on forward to my second point is how do companies and businesses measure transparency? So these are some of it, some of the concepts that open book management originated from. It was a struggling company in Springfield, Missouri in 1983 who had enough and weren't really happy with the open book policy that company in particular had. So they went ahead and started up this open book policy, and that's where it originated from. Some of the ways that you could use to actually gauge if how successful that company is within its transparency is by asking the employees, hey, are they accountable? Do they have secretive or particulatory type of communication? Meaning, am I going to single you out, or am I going to talk to you in a vast majority of groups as I am now, so that you guys could go ahead and get the full-on detail of exactly what it is that we're talking about, and how to fully get a full conversation of what the company is about. A company's integrity and goodwill, that goes a very, very long way, and especially as a consumer, because the more trust and goodwill you have with that company, the better and obviously the greater consumer you will be towards that company. So I just briefly discussed about ways that you could measure business transparency. Moving on forward to my final and third point, which is what are the positive effects of having a successful business that actually displays good transparency? Meaning the brand that you have, it will be fortified in the sense that you will be representing, whether it be Nike, whether it be Reebok, whatever the case may be, that brand definitely fortifies you as a consumer and instills in you, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just, like Nike says, just do it. And so you stick with that. And I briefly went over, in conclusion, I briefly went over my main points. Main point number one being what is business transparency, moving on to my second main point as to how to measure business transparency within a company, and finally, third, the benefits of having a successful business transparency within your company.